Hello everyone. Mudassar, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. Just wait, let me stop my sharing screen. Uh,
Okay, shall I start?
yes, yes.
Morning to one and all present here. I'm Dr. Chitralekha Kotian from the Department of Chemistry of Royal College of Arts, Science and Commerce. I extend warm greetings to all on behalf of the IQAC and the Academic Improvement Committee of my college. I'll start with a quote from Albert Einstein that in the midst of every crisis, there lies great opportunities. For the past few weeks, we have been seeing that in spite of the coronavirus pandemic, we have seen communities across the globe coming together on virtual platforms to explore mechanisms of how to deal with the new normal. Academic communities across our country have also come together on this webinar platform to continue with the process of continuous learning. I'll move on to another quote by Mahatma Gandhi that the ability to reach unity in diversity is the beauty and the test of a civilization. As we face testing times, we as a nation stand united in the fight against coronavirus along with the other countries. We will start today's webinar with the national anthem. I request all of the participants to please stand up with the national anthem. For the national anthem.
This national anthem voice is not coming.
I think there was some problem with the audio in the beginning. I apologize for the same. I now request our principal sir to deliver the welcome address to deliver the official welcome address.
Good morning to one and all. On behalf of Royal Higher Education Societies, Royal College of Arts, Science and Commerce, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome our honorable speaker, Dr. Sunil George, from KP Mehta School of Law affiliated to NMIMS, deemed to be university, and all participants from all over India. This is the first national webinar of Royal College of Arts, Science and Commerce on the topic copyright laws, licensing of e-content, and fair use of open educational resources. The Royal College of Arts, Science and Commerce, a dream project of the founder Professor A.E. Lakdawala, was established in June 1989. Professor A.E. Lakdawala was the founder principal of the college. The college is governed by Royal Higher Education Society. Under the aegis of Royal Higher Education Society, in the same campus, that is Ismail Kanga Educational Campus, Royal Girls English Medium School, Royal Girls Urdu Medium School, and College of Education and Research for Women are established. The college is Muslim minority college, which extends its scope, facilities to other communities also. The institution's motto is empowerment through value education. The college offers following courses: BA, BSc, BSc Computer Science, BCom, BAF, BMS, and MCom. The college has an excellent infrastructural setup in green environment, well-equipped library, yoga center, computer laboratories, and sports infrastructure. The hallmark of the college has been the impeccable record of near 100% result at the university level every year since inception. The college has been reaccredited with A grade with CGPA of 3.09 in its third cycle in the year 2019. I wish you all a fruitful and successful webinar. Thank you. I request Chitra Madam to take over.
Hello everyone, once again. The present COVID-19 situation has brought out an inevitable change in the teaching learning process. Online learning is a way ahead as we learn to live with the virus in the coming days. The methodology of e-content development is one aspect that educators need to be aware of. At the same time, the legal aspects concerning the use of available online resources for the creation of their own e-content is another aspect that educators need to know about. And this is where the theme of our webinar, that is copyright laws, licensing of e-content, and the fair use of open educational resources become relevant. We have invited Dr. Sunil George to speak on this topic for our webinar. It is my privilege to welcome Dr. Sunil George and to introduce Dr. George to the audience. He is a person with a varied experience of 23 years almost in the field of law. Having been in the corporate field for about 14 years, he has responded to the call of passion that he has seen and has joined the academic field. Dr. George holds a doctorate degree in the subject of law. He has cleared several state level and national level competitive examinations. Currently, he affiliated with the Mataram School of Law, which is in turn affiliated to the NMIS Team to be University. He also visiting faculty. He also a visiting faculty at the NMIS Institute of Business Management. His areas of specialization involve criminal law, contract law, and human rights. Dr. George has participated in paper presentations at national and international level, and he has several publications to his credit. He is a recipient of the Best Faculty Award in the year 2018. On behalf of the IQAC and the Academic Improvement Committee, I thank sir for accepting our invitation and for being our today. I would also like to especially thank our online support partners. GMF's Vande Mataram College was provided us with this online platform. Before I hand over the screen to Dr. George, I would like to inform all the audience, right? There is a chance after Dr. George finishes with this talk, you are requested to put your questions. You are requested to put in your questions in the chat box. And my colleague, Dr. Sanjita, will be conducting the question answer session after Dr. George finishes his talk. Thank you again, and over to you, Dr. George.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Sunil George. Chitralekha ma'am, thank you for the introduction. It was very generous an introduction. Okay. Basically, I mean, before I begin, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sunil George, and I'm a faculty with NMIMS Kiripi Mehta School of Law. I'm also the area chairperson for LLM. Okay, and I welcome each one of you to this national webinar on kind of, which is basically titled as Copyright Laws, Licensing of E-Content, and Fair Use of Open Educational Resources. Okay. Um, Before I start, I would take this opportunity to thank Royal College of Arts, Science and Commerce and the principal who happens to be the convener as well, Professor Vikas Vaidya, sir, for and the webinar coordinator, Dr. Chitralekha Kotian, and the internal quality assurance cell coordinator, Dr. Malika Butwala, and also the academic improvement committee for selecting a very apt topic, and also for inviting me as a resource person for this webinar. Now, as we go through the webinar, so that it doesn't become monotonous and you are able to kind of, get in some pointers, I made a PPT which I would like to share with you, and I will take the questions at the end of the session. So, I would now like to share this PPT. Yeah, is it audible? I mean, like, is it visible? I mean, the PPT is visible.
No, sir.
Okay, just give me a second.
So in between there is a start share screen option. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I did. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so our webinar is titled as Copyright Laws, Licensing of E-Content and Fair Use of Open Educational Resources. Okay, now let's first understand what is kind of, open educational resources, and what is kind of, how do we go about it, what are the meaning of it, what are the advantages and all of that. Okay, now basically open educational resources are material which kind of, are freely available on kind of, which on the net, which could be in the form of text, it could be in the form of media, it could be form of digital assets. And what do we do with these resources? We can use these resources for the purpose of teaching. It can be kind of, for learning, and it can also be used for research. Okay, now open educational resources give us the freedom, they give us the autonomy to use these, to kind of, adjust this, make them tailor made to our requirements, make some additions to it, improve upon it, make modifications, and redistribute the same among our target audience, who happen to be students, or kind of, who can also be self learners. Okay, now why was it kind of needed, and why was a need felt to have an open educational resource? Basically, there was a need felt that the entire educational system needs to have enhancement in terms of having good material, good material which could be shared with our students, with, so that the students kind of, take advantage and get advantage of the same. So going to the next one, which was kind of, yeah. Now, going to the genesis of open educational resources. Now, where did the term open educational resources kind of, start? Where was the origin? Where was the genesis? Now, UNESCO held a conference in the year 2002. Now, this is where the participants in the UNESCO, uh, for the first time, they use the term open educational resources. Now, according to them, open educational resources constituted basically educational resources which, by the help of information and communication technology (ICT), could be kind of used for non-commercial purposes. Now, when we say non-commercial purpose, we need to understand that these educational resources, since they are available to us free of cost, obviously we cannot commercially deal in it. We cannot sell it. We cannot kind of make money by selling it. But yes, it can be used for the larger good. You can make a fair use of it. You can kind of give it to your students. You can give it to your fraternity, your teaching fraternity. You can give it to self-learners. Okay. Now, these resources are in a digital form, and these can be kind of assessed, accessed by teachers, students. It can also be kind of by self-learners, and as I already told you, it can be used for the purpose of teaching, for the purpose of imparting education, for the purpose of learning, and also if somebody is a self-learner. Now, this,
Hello, hello, Dr. George.
yes,
Could you please adjust your camera actually?
okay. Am I visible?
Yeah.
Is this better?
Just a minute, sir.
Sir, adjust your camera towards upward. Your face is halfly seen on this screen. It is just half visible.
Is it okay now?
Little more upwards. Yes, now it is.
Is this better?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and continuing with the genesis of these open educational resources, now the purpose of having open educational resources is also kind of perfectly in line with the Sustainable Development Goals which the United Nations kind of would wanted to have. Now, why do we need to have this openness in education and research? Basically, we feel that whatever resources we kind of have created, it should be available to people. Okay. Now, the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights declares that education should be available and education should be made available free, at least at the elementary and the fundamental stages. Okay, so now if it has to be free, then it has to be freely available. It cannot be kind of brought at a price. So therefore, kind of we need to kind of have these open education resources. So this basically is the origin of the concept of open educational resources. Okay, now what does this open educational resources include? Now they include a lot of material, all the material that is available in public domain, which is not copyrighted, which is not kind of exclusively marked as an intellectual property of somebody. Now this could include full courses, course material. Now how does this benefit? Now a student who wants to kind of pursue a particular field of study, obviously he can kind of look at the course material. He can look at the various courses available. He can kind of understand what is the content. He can understand whether he probably has a liking for the subjects that have been offered. So all of this kind of texts, the modules, the content is available. It also includes videos, it includes softwares, it includes tools, materials, and any other technique that is used for imparting knowledge. So this is what broadly open educational resources include. Now, coming to why open educational resources have achieved the importance or significance, and why we are all talking about it. Now, teaching and learning becomes open and available for everybody. Now, why is this need to make it openly available? We know that in a typical kind of college or a school setup, you have a library, you have books in the library, and we also know that the student and the book ratio definitely kind of there is a mismatch between the student ratio and the books in the library. We definitely kind of in spite of having huge budgets, many a times educational institutions cannot cater to each and every student. I mean, cannot provide each and every student with a book. Okay, and most of these books kind of come at a price. Okay, So when these open educational resources are available, then it can be available for everybody to have a look at it. Okay. You don't need a library. You don't kind of, need to go to your library. You don't need to depend upon your, library. Now, the second advantage, which kind of, I would kind of look at having open educational resources, is basically a shift from the typical classroom, the traditional classroom, which is now being replaced by virtual classrooms. Okay. Now, one of the good things that COVID-19 has taught us is taking online lectures, whether it's in Zoom or WebEx or kind of, uh, not depending upon the typical classroom kind of a thing. Now, today what happens is kind of, it need not be just a pandemic like COVID-19. It could be situations like, for example, we have monsoons approaching. We could have kind of, 3 to 4 days of kind of, forced holiday in terms of students and teachers not being able to make to schools and colleges. Now, this is where, the online sources and open educational resources can come to play. Also, today, what we need to understand is working from home. Okay, when we thought of working from home, probably this was a concept which was only known to the countries, the foreign countries. Okay, which was never a concept known to India. In India, also, it started probably with the IT companies wanting to kind of reduce cost, administrative cost, and wanting people to work from home, develop software from home, okay, and allowing people to work from home. But today, even teaching has probably kind of uh, you know become working from home. Now, in such a kind of thing, when we have enough access to open educational resources, we do not have to depend upon the book which was lying in the library, or we do not have to depend upon the notes which we kind of forgot in probably our cabinet, and we did not know that there's going to be a sudden lockdown. So open educational resources help you to kind of replace the traditional classrooms. You get more content which you can share with all the stakeholders, which could be your students, which could be your colleagues, okay, and thereby kind of reach out to a large audience. Okay. Now there could also be a better collaboration between different institutions. Okay. In the normal parlance, we talk about faculty exchange programs. We say that you should have faculty exchange, you should have best practices, you should have exchange of best practices, benchmarked things which are being kind of benchmarked, which you want to share with others. But why not kind of content? We can also share content, we can also collaborate with respect to content which has been produced by us. We can share it with our colleagues, we can share it across institutions, we can share it with the other fraternity, other teaching fraternity, and therefore collaboration between the teaching fraternity, collaboration between institutions, collaboration between different kind of streams of education becomes possible because of open educational resources. Now, open educational resources also kind of promote culture which is of learning, which is of creating, which is of sharing and cooperation. Okay. Now, obviously, if I'm going to refer to somebody's material, I also feel a need to contribute to open educational resources. I also need to contribute to the resources available, because somewhere when I did not have adequate time to prepare for my lecture and I depended upon somebody's already shared content, now I feel that this is a time for me to pay back, and I kind of also deposit some content onto the net. Okay. Now, today I can kind of have a larger audience. I can kind of I need not, as a teacher, just restrict myself to my students, the students who come before me in a classroom. I can kind of look at people who probably are self-learners, okay, and by developing this content, everybody who kind of goes through this content, who kind of reads the content, who makes use of this content according to his specific needs, can kind of benefit from this open educational resources. Uh, One of the biggest advantage of open educational resources which are freely available is the cost factor. Okay, we know that education today has become very costly. Okay, and especially when we kind of live in urban cities, we also have to understand that India also comprises a rural sector or also a semi-urban sector where probably people do not have access to education because of their economic conditions, and that is where uh, you know and most of the courses today, whether it is medicine, whether it's law, whether it's pharmacy, whether it's architecture, whether it's kind of commerce, whether it's kind of MBA, you have entrance exams. Okay, and these entrance exams, students from affluent families, students kind of who can afford, can take the benefit of uh, attending coaching classes and institutes which are specifically designed for training and educating these kind of students to gain success to crack these exams. But what about the students who cannot afford the coaching classes? Now, this is where the open education resources can be of great help. The questions, the study material, the multiple choice questions that you've created, the content that you've created can be of great help to all of these students. And this can help them better and kind of, preparing for the exams at no cost. Okay, because of your generosity, because of you kind of, sharing your content, because of you making those resources which are available to you as open resources which can be accessed by everybody. Now, it also helps in better dissemination of information. Now, when I say dissemination of information, we know that in a typical classroom, either the classroom has kind of too much of a strength. We know the student teacher ratio in India. I mean, even if we want to, the UGC might prescribe a wonderful ratio, but then we know the hard reality and the ground reality that the student teacher ratio is kind of and we are not able to kind of cater to every student probably in the class. Okay, also as a teacher probably we have constraints in terms of kind of lot of work that we need to kind of do. We need to prepare for our lectures, we need to kind of uh, what do you call, now it may we need to prepare for the lectures, we need to kind of give notes wherever possible. But we also know that it may not be kind of possible to give notes for every lecture that you deliver. There will be time constraints, there will be resources constraints, there will be other constraints, and therefore, you know, when we have open educational resources, we can kind of ask the students, we can share it with the students, we can kind of the students can themselves look at these resources. Students who are really motivated can come prepared in a lecture, can come prepared for a lecture. They can say that, okay, probably the teacher is going to kind of or the professor is going to take this particular topic. I would like to know what this topic is all about. I want to read about it on the net. And therefore he goes to the net, reads about it. He's much more prepared in the class. He can much more participate in a more proactive way in the discussions, deliberations, and the debates that take place in the class, and thereby enhance his learning. Also, we know that as students, the teaching, when we kind of teach students, the attention span is very less. Okay, after 20-25 minutes, the teacher thinks that the student is paying attention, and the student thinks that he is assuming that the teacher is kind of thinking that he or she is paying attention, but that doesn't happen now. And since he is not paying attention, he does not kind of understand, he does not grasp, and since he cannot grasp, he cannot recall things. But when these resources, when these content is available in an open form, then obviously he can kind of refer to this whenever he wants at a later stage. So that is the other advantage of having open educational resources. Okay, so you are able to kind of disseminate information in a better manner. Okay, now also what happens is you can kind of customize. You have a lot of content available, you have a lot of resources available, you can customize this to your own requirement. Okay, so you have come across a particular content. Okay, and let's say for example a professor who teaches management subject in a college. Now, when he wants to kind of deals with Henry Ford's principles of management, now the way he would deal with Henry Ford's principles of management to a management student would be different from what he would do to a commerce student who has kind of management as one of the subjects. Okay, so basically different streams of education require different levels of understanding. Some subjects have to be, the students have to have expert knowledge. Some subjects the students have to have a working knowledge depending upon which stream you are kind of in. Okay, for example, a student of law can kind of have a working knowledge of accounts, but obviously a student of commerce cannot kind of say to have working knowledge of accounts. He needs to be an expert in accounts. Okay, so therefore the teacher or the professor can kind of actually customize or tailor make these open educational resources as per his requirement, as per the requirements of his stakeholders, which is the audience, which is the students. Now, we also can kind of, transcend geographical barriers and boundaries. Now, how is this possible? For example, you want a book which is published in US or UK. Now, you have a cousin who's kind of, based out of USA or UK, and he's going to come for a vacation. Or you have Amazon, you order the book in Amazon. You're lucky to kind of, get the book. But now you have this material, everything available. You do not even, you just kind of don't have just the Indian perspective of it, but you also have the global perspective. You can look at particular concepts, you can look at particular principles, you can understand how globally these principles, how globally these concepts work. Now, with respect to the field of science, we know that the laws of science are more or less universal. But when it comes to social sciences, we know that a comparative study or a comparative analysis of concepts, principles, okay, makes a lot of kind of, interesting study. Okay, so when we transcend these geographical barriers because of open educational resources, we can have better content. Our students can have better content. Okay, also, you don't need to kind of, go to a library. You can access these kind of resources anytime, anywhere, wherever you are. You may be on a vacation. Even if you're on a vacation which your family has forced upon you, you can still prepare for your lectures. You can take that time out, you can take that half an hour out and prepare for your lectures. Okay, so you are happy, your students are happy, and your family is also happy because you don't have to sacrifice on your teaching, or you don't have to sacrifice on the quality of uh, knowledge that you're imparting, or nor do you have to sacrifice on your family vacation. It also gives more freedom to us academicians, us teaching faculty. Now, when I say freedom, normally what happens is we as academicians, we as teachers, we remain confined to the kind of syllabus, the course outline that is given. Okay, and we do not transcend beyond the course outline. We've been teaching a particular subject for many years. We think that we are the best teachers for that subject. We also think that the way we are teaching is the best way to teach. And that is probably because we have not looked at different other pedagogies, different other methods, or different other ways in which the subject could be taught. Also, for example, we need to understand that every 10 years, probably the audience that you have in terms of students are changing. The attention span of students, especially when we were students, okay, now we were very attentive, okay, and today, I mean, the attention span of the students may not be the same, okay. Today, what kind of interest them may not be the same things which interested you and me. So therefore, we need to kind of bring in a lot of new things, a lot of new methods in teaching, which would really keep our students motivated, which will really kind of um, keep them interested in a particular subject or in a particular topic that we are kind of teaching them. Otherwise, they're going to lose subject, they're going to lose interest in the subject, and they're not going to study because they feel that, okay, here is a person who's kind of, probably prepared for some time. He's coming, he's kind of, going on saying something which he knows probably it makes sense for him, but doesn't make sense for us, because what you've done is you've shared knowledge, but you've not understood your audience. You've not devised some other methods which could make the entire process of teaching and learning more interesting. Now, the other benefit of open educational resources is that it has really facilitated interdisciplinary research. Today, we know that no field can be kept in watertight compartment. We cannot say that I'm purely a law faculty, or I'm a purely a faculty of commerce, or I'm a faculty of management, or I'm a faculty of economics or political science, or organic chemistry, or whatever. I have to kind of look at other fields, because uh, whatever you teach, the students need to just kind of, they need to be an expert in the subject that they're learning, but they also need to know they need to have working knowledge of other things. So therefore, and also in research today, we know that interdisciplinary research is kind of, is definitely something which is come here to stay. And when we talk about interdisciplinary research, we know that we are more or less experts in our subjects. We know our subject, we know our content, but we probably do not know the content which would be related to some other subject. Now, this is where open educational resources can really help you, can enhance the material that you have, can enhance the material that you're going to work for the purpose of research. Now, it's also favorable. We talk about a digital environment. We know that we are going for digitalization. So in a digital environment, what works best is open educational resources, because here you don't have to look at bulky books. You don't have to kind of, look at, what you call teach a physical textbooks. Now, these physical textbooks could be very costly also, okay, and would be very bulky to carry, would not be kind of, easily available. And most of the time what happens is, here you would have to probably refer to different textbooks to kind of, teach a particular subject. But here, at the click of a button, you have uh, you have access to so much of open educational resources that are available for you, and which can kind of, which perfectly works in a digital environment. Now, along with the advantages of open educational resources, there are some, I won't say disadvantage, I would call it as challenges. Okay. Now, what are the challenges that we face with respect to open educational resources? The first challenge that we have is about quality. Generally, like for example, whatever we see on a WhatsApp forward, or what we see on kind of, Google, or what we see on Wikipedia, or what we see as an open educational resource, maybe most of the time authentic, but there is also a risk of it not being authentic. Now, how do you differentiate between an authentic information and a non-authentic information? Now, this is where the skill of the academician, the skill of the teacher would come to play, where he will have to be really, really very careful when it comes to choosing the open educational resources, understanding it himself, and imparting what is the relevant part to his students or to the stakeholders. Okay, so it is a teacher, is the academician who will have to kind of, um, understand and make kind of, the educational resource, open educational resource relevant and to the students. Now, we also have issues related to intellectual property. Now, the second part of the presentation is about intellectual property. So we'll go at length as to what are the issues with respect to intellectual property. Now, there could also be a lack of awareness of copyright issues. Mostly we see that what happens is teachers, academicians, faculty members are not aware of these open educational resources. They think that it is somebody's material. It probably would not be correct on our part, moral on our part, or probably it could end up in litigation if we kind of copy material. So one of the hesitation why faculty members do not use open educational resources is also because they are not aware of the copyright issues. They are not aware of the legal aspects of copyright issues, the legal aspects of open education resource, which we will be focusing on the second part of the syllabus or on the second part of the presentation of the webinar. Risk of monopoly ownership. Now, what happens is there is also a fear that over a period of time, these open education resources which are available would become a monopoly of some service provider. They would kind of create monopoly rights with respect to these resources. Now this is just a fear, this is an apprehension, and what would happen is as a result, again, whatever is kind of very peculiar about a monopoly or whatever is kind of bad about a monopoly would kind of creep in. Now the other challenge that we have with respect to open education resource is lack of infrastructure and technology. Now, just to give you an analogy or an example, I remember that in the month of March when the government announced a lockdown and we had some pending online lectures. Now, most of our students were kind of logging into their mobile phones or to their laptops, for listening to the lectures or for kind of attending those lectures. Now, I remember a student in one remote village of a particular state. He had to literally come out of his house, come out of his home, and kind of come to the main road because he did not have internet connection or Wi-Fi connection or there was network issue. So lack of infrastructure, especially in the rural sector, okay, could be one of our biggest challenge for accessing these open educational resources which are otherwise available for our disposal at our disposal. Now, okay, as academicians, as teachers, we know that uh, when the academic session starts, okay, we do not know when the academic session starts and when it comes to an end. Okay, a lot of things to be done, teaching being the foremost, then sharing material, taking internal assignments, kind of assessing, setting papers, kind of what do you call, working as examiners, assessing the papers, moderating the papers, developing content, okay, for the board of studies or for the academic review. So that keeps us kind of busy. A lot of, I mean, lot of time is spent on all of these activities. Some education institutions also expect teachers to kind of play some administrative role apart from marketing role of kind of marketing the courses and marketing the syllabus or marketing a particular diploma course which the college has come up with. So which means, do we really have time, okay, of developing open educational resources? Because this could be time consuming because you want to kind of give the best that you have to others, and in order to develop the best you need to also give best time. Now, which means, yes, it is a challenge, but this challenge can be overcome if we get support from probably, the librarians, okay, because they are the experts. They know how to kind of, look for educational resources. Uh, they are the experts in their field. Some support from admin staff. Educational institutions really need to support and handhold the faculty member in their kind of, venture of developing new content. Okay, so if that is done, this challenge is something which can be easily met. Okay, now the again one of the other challenge or one of the other reason why people do not, why academicians and faculty members do not use open educational resource is probably we do not want to kind of shift or from our comfort zone. So if I'm very comfortable using a PPT for teaching, I feel PPT, using a PPT is the best method. If I want to use the blackboard or the whiteboard or the smart board for teaching, I'm comfortable doing it. I don't want to have a discussion. I don't want to have a debate. I don't want to have a case study. I don't want to do any of this because Why? Because I don't want to innovate, because I do not want to move out of my comfort zone. So since as faculty members, as academicians, we do not probably want to move out of our comfort zones, and we're used to doing what we've been doing for many years. There is a lack of innovation among the faculty members, and because of this, new content is not getting developed. Now, I spend my time, I develop an open educational resource. What do I get? I mean, I put in a lot of time. Somebody uses it. Okay, so that's the general feeling that we as faculty members, why should we do it? What is the reward and recognition for me for developing an open educational resource? Now, this is an answer. This is something which probably the educational institutions, the government, UGC needs to kind of an answer. If we have to make use of these open educational resources, if we have to really exploit the wide and the huge content which is available open, which can really make our teaching better, then there needs to be some reward and recognition mechanism for rewarding the teachers and faculty members who spend their time developing this content. Now, how do you kind of reward them? It could be, now, if you have developed open educational resources, it could be one of the criteria for promotion. It could be one of the criteria for an increment. It could just like how you publish your research paper, you take part in conferences, you are a PhD guide, and then you get API score. It adds to your API score. Probably the UGC needs to also kind of look at, developing of open educational resources as one of the incentives for rewarding a faculty or an academician, which means more and more people will do it, and you would have more open content which is available for everybody to use. Now, educational institutions also show a bit of hesitation. Now, what happens is sometimes, some of the education institutions, we see that there are kind of stopgap arrangements. A teacher of a particular subject is kind of is gone on leave or is gone on emergency leave, and some other teacher is asked to chip in. Now, what happens in a classroom? Nobody comes to know, because it is only between the teacher and the student. But when you are developing an open educational resource and it is available in the public domain for everybody to see, so if the content does not make sense, if the content is not of good quality, what would happen is it would not only reflect badly on the person who has created the content, that is a faculty member or the academician, but also on the educational institute, because ultimately the education institution, it would kind of boil down to the education institution saying that your faculty has developed this educational content or this resource which does not add any value, or probably this does not seem to be relevant. Okay, so then therefore open educational institutions also show their bit of hesitation in developing. Now, what does open educational resources allow you to do? Now, you have a right to retain this information. So you have come across some information, you have a right to retain the information. You have a right to make copies, which means you can make your working notes, you can make your notes, you can make your PowerPoint presentations, you can download the material, you can store the material in kind of onto your computer, onto your floppy, onto your pen drive. You can make photocopies, give it to your colleagues. So you have a right to retain the material. The second right which the open educational resources give you is a right to reuse. Now, when you say that right to reuse, I have got content. Now, where will I use this content? Okay, I will use this content in the classroom, not only in one classroom, I can use it in the classroom. I can replicate the information in a study group. I can replicate the information in a research paper. I can replicate the information that I've received in an article. I can replicate the information that I've received in a presentation, or I can replicate the information in a website, or I can make a video out of it, or I can make an audiovisual, what do you call, tool which can be used by everybody. Now, apart from right to retain and right to reuse, you also have a right to revise. Now I have some content which I have come across. Now I want to make it customized to meet my requirements, tailor-made to my requirements. So I can modify it, I can amend it, I can alter it, I can kind of, so for example, if it is in a particular language, I can convert it into another language. I can have a translation of the content, or I can kind of, make it into a tabular form, or I can make it into a different form. So I have a right to revise the content which is available to kind of cater to my requirements, cater to the requirements of my audience, which is my students. Now I also have a right to remix. Now what do you mean by remix? Okay, now we have heard about remixing of songs, remix. Now similarly, remix of educational material would mean you have some material with you which is your content, and you get some content from the net. Now what do? You mix both of these contents. So you have something, you get something from the in the form of an open educational resource. You combine both of them and make something very new, make something very novel. Okay, so you make a PPT out of it, you make a presentation out of it, you make a video out of it. So you have a right to remix. Now you also have a right to redistribute. Okay, now just like you got access to these materials, you can redistribute these materials for the purpose of teaching, for the purpose of learning, and for the purpose of kind of research. This can be done with the teaching fraternity, with your colleagues. It can be done across educational institutions also. Okay, so that is what open educational resources allow us to do. Now let's look at the examples of open educational resources. Now National Digital Library is one of the biggest kind of the largest kind of open educational resource which is available, which has got a lot of content, a lot of text, a lot of images, a lot of pictures, a lot of articles, a lot of research papers, a lot of kind of books which are there. Similarly, the World Digital Library is there, where you can kind of use an open educational resource. Wikibooks, Shodh Ganga. We know Shodh Ganga is a repository of all the PhD thesis which has happened in different subjects, different topics. So then you can refer to them, you can kind of look at them, you can look at how people have kind of uh, you know addressed their what do you call research questions or a hypothesis, or how have they gone for a literature review, what work has already been done on a particular subject or on a particular topic, and what research can you do over something which is existing. So all of this can be available in Shodh Ganga. Similarly, Shodh Gangotri is kind of is another open education resource which we know is basically a repository of all research work which is in the pipeline. Okay, so basically we can also look at it, we can also know that what is the research which is in the pipeline. So if you have to decide probably what would be your area of research, you can always look at what is research has already been conducted, because you obviously want to create something new. You want to kind of have a relook at certain things. So obviously you want to know what is already existing, and Shodh Gangotri, Shodh Ganga could be one of these open educational resources which help you to kind of do this. uh, YouTube is, I think, the most popular, not only among teachers, not only among students, but among the citizens. I mean, YouTube, I mean, you have anything, right from how to make a recipe of a particular dish, to kind of how to construct a particular building, or how to cultivate um, a kitchen garden, or how to kind of cultivate crops. Anything and everything, you get a YouTube video. Okay, so that's an open educational resource. You don't have to pay for it, you don't have to kind of, you get it in the form of, it's open for you, and it can be accessed, and you can use the content which is available. You can use the teaching material which is available, which is now an open, which is in public domain, which is open for everybody to watch, which is open for everybody to see. So these are the these materials can be used for your effective teaching and for the effective learning of the students. Now, the next one is Creative Commons. Now, I have taken Creative Commons as a case study of an open educational resource. So I will be going at length at Creative Commons. Okay, what is Creative Commons? What are the different kinds of licenses involved? Okay, so Creative Commons is also an educational resource. It is basically it gives you open content licenses. Okay, which provides, now for example, you have a lot of content with you, you want to share the content, but you want to keep the rights with you. Okay, you want to say that yes, I am the author of the work, so anybody can use my work, but when they use my work, they have to give kind of credit to me. So you can do that. Like for example, you've been a teacher of economics for many years, and there's a new teacher who comes. Okay, and the new teacher probably comes to you, says that, sir, madam, I mean, I don't have PPTs to share with my class. Do you have already some material with you? Okay. Now, obviously, I mean, you will be generous enough to kind of share your material, share your notes, share your kind of content with this new person from the same fraternity. But then, obviously, you also expect the person to be generous enough to give you the credit, saying that the PPT or the kind of what do you call, the notes belong to the original professor or the original faculty member. So this is what Creative Commons does. Creative Commons allows you to use it, but yes, you will have to kind of acknowledge it. You will have to say that yes, this is content, but this content belongs to this author. Okay, it's a non-profit organization which provides ready-made licensing agreements. So you have licensing agreements which are there, which are kind of in a standard form of agreements, and from kind of you have restrictive rights instead of kind of all rights reserved. In a general copyright, all rights are reserved with the owner of the copyright. So you have a transition from all rights reserved to giving of some rights, allowing the user to use some rights. Okay, now this can be kind of uh, as as a very effective tool for individuals, institutions, companies, for kind of getting copyright permissions for and for using, for creating, distributing, and sharing of content. Okay. Now, Creative Commons also gives you certain kind of clarity and certainty, because you don't have to, if you want to kind of share somebody's content and you know the author of the content, you don't, and you're not sure about who's the author, you don't have to hunt for the author. You know that you have Creative Commons, you can kind of you, and the person has put it in public domain. So Creative Commons kind of reduces the administrative hassles of kind of getting permission to use somebody else's work. It is also helpful for people who will not have knowledge or who are ignorant about the open educational resource mechanisms. Okay. Now, it also kind of allows a lot of free open content which can be used for the purpose of education to be freely shared among the people. Okay. Now, what are the different kinds of licenses that Creative Commons gives? Now, if we go to the first one, which is attribution. Now, attribution. Now, what do you mean by attribution? So, I attribute it to somebody. Okay. Now, this kind of a license um, gives others the right to distribute, remix, adapt. Now, distribute, I can kind of, I have got it. I can give it to my colleagues. I can give it to my students. I can remix. I have content. I can take content from the open educational resources, create a new content. I can amend it and build upon it, and even commercially, I can kind of exploit it. But I should be able to give credit to the original creator. Okay, so here what happens is uh, there is no restriction. Basically, whatever content you have, those content can be used, can be even commercially exploited. You can give it to other people, you can store it, you can kind of build upon it, you can remix it, you can amend it to meet your requirements, the requirements of your course, the requirements of your students, and you can probably customize this. So this is the first type of license which is given, which is in the form of attribution. Now the second one is attribution share alike. Okay, attribution share alike. Now in this license, you again, you can kind of have, you can remix, you can adapt, which is you can amend, you can build upon the material which is already existing. So there is some very good material which is there. What you need to do is you can kind of, make it into a tabular form. You can kind of, adjust something. You can put your own content and create something new. And you can also exploit it commercially. Okay. So you can kind of, sell copies of what you have created. Okay. Now, uh, you will also kind of, whatever you have from the original, whatever you have created, whatever you have derived, that also can be commercially exploited. Okay. Now any material which is like, for example, now Wikipedia uses attribution share alike. So all the content, now obviously, they will also keep on updating the content, because to make the content more relevant to the contemporary time, they would want to kind of, at periodic intervals, at some frequency, they would want to kind of, have additions to their study material, which they would do. So attribution share alike is the another type of license that you can get. Now the third one is attribution, and but no kind of, derivatives, nothing to be derived. The license allows you to reuse the work for any purpose. Okay. And this includes commercial exploitation also. So basically you can reuse the work for any purpose. Okay. But and including commercial purpose. Next one is attribution non-commercial. Now this is where the person who has created the information, the original creator of the information, is a little touchy, is a little kind of, what do you call, very very possessive about his content. He says, okay, I have given it you free of cost. Why should you kind of, use it commercially? I mean, it's like saying that, probably I have kind of, planted a mango tree. Why should you want to kind of have mangoes? You can have it, but then you can't have the mangoes and sell it in the market and make money out of it. Okay, so here the person is saying that you can use it. You can kind of, use it for your teaching, for your learning, for your research purpose. For you can have a fair use of it, but do not use it in a commercial manner, because you are not the author. Okay, I'm being very generous. I'm allowing you to use it. I'm You have to use it, you have to give credit to me, and but then you cannot make a commercial use of it. You cannot kind of, say that, you're going to kind of, pluck somebody else's mangoes and sell it in the market and make money out of it. Okay, that will not be allowed here. So basically it's basically a non-commercial use. Now the next one is attribution non-commercial share alike. Now this license also allows you to amend things, build upon things, remix things. Okay. um, there you And then what happens is, you also have to, again here you have to give credit to the original creator. You cannot kind of, claim it to be yours. You have to give credit. Now you have a moral obligation to also develop the content. Now you have got some content. Now you once you develop the content, that developed content also has to be in public domain. Okay. And again, this also does not allow you a commercial use. So basically it also does not allow you to use the commercial in the resources which are available free of cost to you in a commercial manner. Okay, so this is also the another type of license which allows a non-commercial use, but gives you the autonomy, gives you the freedom to amend it, to build upon it, to adjust it, to remix it as per your requirements, provided you give credit to the author. Now the other kind of license is attribution non-commercial no derivatives. Here what happens is, um, here it's very restrictive. Here you are not supposed to kind of, share with others. Okay. You cannot use them commercially. So what you want to use it, yes, you use it, you download it, but you can't share. So this is, the author is saying no commercial use, because I am the owner, therefore you will not use it commercially, but however I am allowing you a fair use. I'm the author, I would distribute. You will not have a right to distribute it. Okay. Okay. And even if you do, and even if you share with others, you will have to kind of, do it with my permission, and you will have to give credit to me. So these are different kind of licenses which are available under Creative Commons, wherein you can kind of have access to these open educational resources. So basically, if anybody wants more information, you can always kind of surf the net to get more information about this. I thought I would just give you an outline of what are the different licenses which are available. Now, let us look at how far India has been successful and what is the initiative which India as a country has taken in open educational resources. One of the examples or the analogy that I would like to give you here is the example of the National Council of Education for Research and Training, NCRT. Now, NCRT has digitalized all its textbooks, right from standard 1 to standard 12. Now, how does this help? The cost of education is indispensable. You have to, the parents are supposed to kind of, if the parents want to see their students educated, probably they have to, whether they like it or not like it, they have to bear the cost of education. Now, the cost of textbooks could be an additional cost, but making them in a digital form, it helps kind of, the parents, it reduces the burden on the parents on buying textbooks, which could be very costly, which could be out of their means, okay, apart from the fees. Okay, so these textbooks are available free online. Now, a constituent unit of NCRT is the Central Institute of Educational Technology, CIET. Now, this constituent unit also has digitalized a lot of thousands of audio and video programs which are available. These are available at the Sakshat portal, okay, of the Ministry of MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Development. Now, in addition, there's a repository of open education resources in the form of NORER, which has a lot of e-content. Now, how does this help? This helps kind of, to have a wide variety of open education resources. So I thought kind of, normally when we talk about open education resources, we think that it is probably an alien concept. It's not a concept known to India. So I just wanted to give you this analogy of NCRT. Yes, we also have open education resources. The only thing is probably we need to have develop more content. We need to have a wider look and a wider kind of perspective to look at open educational resources and develop more content. Now I come to the second part of the webinar, which is intellectual property. Now, how intellectual property and what is the relation between open educational resources and intellectual property is what I would be dealing in this part. Now, intellectual property. Now, as the name suggests, intellectual, I have to be an intellectual. I have to really, create something. It's a creation of my mind. I have invented something. It could be kind of an invention. It could be a literary work. I've written a book. I've written an article. I've written a research paper. I've written a thesis. Or I've done or made a work of art, a painting, a caricature, a cartoon, a symbol, which could be a trademark, which would be a service mark, a name, a image, okay, a photograph, anything. So it's basically an intangible asset, which is a creation of human intellect. Now, when we talk about intellectual property, normally, when we teach students about property, we say properties of two types, mobile and immobile property, but also properties of a third type, which is intellectual property, which kind of comprises, which is very important. And as far as intellectual property is concerned, there are different countries across the globe which have different levels of protection when it comes to intellectual property. Some countries are very particular about intellectual property. Some countries kind of give a lot of protection. Now, though they are all come under the common ambit of treaties, conventions, okay, whether you call it WIPO, whether you call the Berne Convention or different conventions and treaties with respect to intellectual property that have taken place. Apart from that, but more or less the protection for intellectual property is different in different countries. However, most of the countries recognize four types of intellectual property. Now, these four types of intellectual property, the first one is patents, the second one trademark, third is geographical indications, and the fourth one is copyright. Okay. Now, patents. Now, patents, what is patent? Patent is basically a right, intellectual property, which is given to a person who has invented something new. Okay. So, for example, if I make a new machine, I make a new electronic gadget, then I need to be incentivized. I need to get some kind of reward for making something new. Obviously, kind of I need to have an incentive for working hard. I should have an incentive for having done something when probably my colleagues were kind of not doing that, and that would be in the form of patent. So basically, that machine or the method or the process of making that machine cannot be used without my permission. So that as a creator of the machine or the electronic gadget, I get an intellectual property. Okay. Similarly, I have to give you an example which is very, very relevant in the present situation of the pandemic. We know that around the globe, if everybody is eagerly waiting, I think it is for a vaccine which would cure COVID-19. Now, let's say one country, one scientist somewhere in the globe, okay, you never know, maybe India, okay, so uh, succeeds in making that vaccine, which is really the most awaited vaccine for fighting this pandemic. Now, in such a situation, what happens? Can the user say that, okay, I have developed this vaccine, I will not give, it's my intellectual property, it is, I have mixed or certain components, I made certain formulations, and that is how the drug or the medicine was invented, and therefore I have a patent for it. The law says, the intellectual property law says, when it is for public use, when it is for public benefit, there is a system of compulsory licensing wherein it is being allowed, okay, the maker, the manufacturer, the producer of the drug is given adequate compensation, and thereby he has to grant compulsory licensing, kind of for others to make the medicine or the drug so that it is accessible to a large section of the population across the globe. Now, again, the second type is trademarks. We know trademarks, service mark. Okay, we recognize Larsen and Toubro by the words L&T. Okay, so similarly, kind of this could be trademarks, this could be service marks. Okay, and kind of we know that we know Air India by the Maharaja, which is kind of So basically, you could have mascots, you could have symbols, you could have service marks, which basically recognizes, which you could have different color combinations to say that you are a particular product. Now, can these be used because these are your intellectual property? You kind of people, consumers, customers identify you by this trademark, by this particular distinct identity that you carry in the market. Now, would you not want to protect it? The answer is yes. So therefore, there is legal protection to intellectual property, which is in the form of trademarks, which may also include trade secrets. Okay. Now, trade secrets, I mean, like, for example, company which manufactures a soft drink. Okay. Now, Coca-Cola company probably would not want to kind of, tell its formulation as to how it manufactures Coke or produces Coca-Cola or Thumbs Up or any other kind of, beverage. Okay. So that's the trade secret of that particular company, which is intellectually protected. Now, coming to geographical indications. Now, what is geographical indications? Now, we know that certain things, okay, belong to a particular region, belong to a particular topography, okay. Now, and the law protects, that kind of, produce which is made in a particular region or in a particular topography or in a particular geographical area. Now, for example, when we want to sell Alfonso mangoes, we won't kind of the mangoes would sell if they are kind of sold as Ratnagiri Alfonso mangoes or Sindhudurg Alfonso mangoes. Now, obviously, because mangoes are grown everywhere, Alfonso mangoes are grown probably across the country, but the Alfonso mangoes grown in Ratnagiri district or Sindhudurg district are considered to be far superior. So when you get a geographical indication, you can use the name of the place in front of the product that you are making. Okay, so you can call it as Ratnagiri Alfonso mangoes, or you can say oranges from Nagpur. Oranges are grown in different parts of the country, but oranges from Nagpur are far superior. So therefore, or apples from Himachal Pradesh, or petas from Agra, or rasgullas from Kolkata, okay, or kind of turmeric from Salem, or black pepper from Kerala. Okay, so all of these could be kind of examples of geographical indications where, or tea from Assam. Okay, so where you kind of attach the geographical area to the product to say that the product is kind of different, distinct from others. So you get a intellectual property there wherein you can use it, you can sell your product saying that it belongs to a particular area, which is a protection given to you. Now, the other protection which we are concerned is copyright. Now, what is copyright? Now, copyright, you would have seen the symbol of the copyright, the C symbol, which says that if I've created a work, if something is the creation of my mind, if something I have taken efforts to create something, I will have a right to use it, I will have a right to reproduce it, I will have a right to distribute it. And if I want to make a commercial exploitation, if I want to sell it to people, I want to kind of so I compose a music for a particular movie, I want to sell my music, I want to sell my song, I want to write a script for a particular movie, and or I want to write a book which I want to publish, or I want to kind of make a painting or a caricature which I want to sell. I can get a copyright on that, which prevents others from using it without my permission. And as a owner of copyright, I have the right to kind of use it the way I want. I have a right to distribute it. I have a right to kind of sell it, commercially exploit it. So that is about the Copyright Act. Okay. Now, what does copyright protect? It protects literary works. We saw books, journals, articles, research papers. Okay, poems, anything, cartoons, caricatures, jokes. Okay. Now, dramatic work with or without music, musical work, okay, work of music, poems, songs, ghazals, okay, pictorial, graphics, sculpture, cinematographic films, anything which is computer generated, which you have done, which is not just a combination of certain keyboards, keys. It is kind of something which you have created. It's a creation. Like for example, a software developer developing a new program would be a copyright which he can or which he wants to copyright. It also include architectural drawings, photographs, okay, plans. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of granting copyright? We all know that if you do not reward somebody's efforts, okay, so if you do not reward a person by saying that okay, you have created this thing, and therefore you would be rewarded, you would get a reward for a particular thing in terms of money, or you can exploit it commercially by selling it to others, nobody would kind of create anything new. Okay, so the purpose of granting copyright is basically you are allowing people to create new things which they can use, which they can claim to be owners, which they can kind of commercially exploit. They can make money, they can make a living by selling it to others, and therefore there is a legal protection given to them. Okay, and they can decide whom to give, when to give, how much to give, and for what to give. Okay, as to what would be the adequate remuneration for which they would give their kind of intellectual work. Now, what are the rights of the owner of copyright? He has a right to display the work publicly. Obviously, it's my work. I would kind of take pride in displaying it to people. Like for example, tomorrow, kind of if somebody publishes a textbook, I mean, obviously, I mean, the first Facebook post would be that he has kind of authored a particular textbook, or he has co-authored a research paper. So obviously, you want the world to know. I mean, there's nothing to hide. It's your work, it's your efforts. So you want to display it publicly. You have the right to display it. The Copyright Act gives you the right to display it in a public manner. You can make copies of them. It is your thing. You can make as many copies. You can make as many volumes. You can publish it. You can sell those copies. You can make money. You can import or export your work. You don't have to be limited to geographical boundaries. You can kind of, if there are people who are willing to use your work, willing to kind of, are interested in your work, see utility in your work, then obviously kind of, you can also kind of, not limit yourself to the national boundaries. You can also go international. You can kind of, sell your work to other people and, make money. Now you can also transmit your work in an audiovisual form. Now I have content. Okay. Now if I have content. What do I do? Okay. I make it into a form which would be understood, which could be kind of, grasped by my stakeholders, which would be my students, in a form which they can understand. Okay. So for example, I kind of, make a very I would not call a boring topic, but a dry topic more interesting by, making a role play or making a and converting it into a play or a street play, so that the message is delivered, and the message is not only delivered, the message is retained, because that is ultimately the purpose of education. That whatever the student kind of gains is not only kind of learned but also retained, and he is able to reproduce that at an adequate time and opportunity. Now, it also allows the copyright owner to stop others from using the work. Okay. Now, till what time do I have this right of copyright? Now, literary work. Literary work, books, articles, okay, dramatic and musical work, and artistic work. So all of this three, 60 years from the death of the author is a copyright term. Okay, so what does this mean? Now for 60 years, so for example, if I made something on 16th, I've written a book on 16th May 2020. Okay, so I have a copyright on that book. Okay, I kind of, and let's say I die after 20 years. Okay, so 2020, 2040, from 2040 to 60 years, I have the copyright. So even after my death, I have a copyright, which means if anybody infringes my right, if anybody violates my right, or if anybody tries to reproduce the book, I am not there, but my legal heirs, my successors, can sue them and say that, okay, this book belongs to our father, or, my husband, or my kind of, brother, or whoever, and can kind of, sue them, take them to court, and can recover compensation for violating copyright. So in case of literary work, dramatic work, musical work, or artistic work, the copyright term is 60 years from the death of the author, which means after the death of the author, 60 years should have lapsed. After 60 years have lapsed, anybody can use it. Now, when it comes to a cinematographic film or a sound recording or a photograph or works of national and international organizations, in such case, the copyright term is 60 years from the date of publication. Now, what does it mean 60 years from the date of publication? It's very simple. It means that if the work is published on 16 May 2020, 60 years from there, there is a copyright, which means nobody can use the film, nobody can use the sound recording, nobody can use the work, or nobody can use the photograph or the pictures for 60 years from now. After the period of 60 years are over, then anybody can use it. Okay. So this is about the term of the copyright with respect to cinematographic film, sound recording, photographs, works of national and international organization. Now, copyright and open education resources. Now, kind of, this is what is most interesting that we all need to kind of, know. Now, yes, since I am the owner of a work, yes, I can decide when to kind of, give it to others. If I'm generous enough, I can make it as an open education resource. If I'm not generous enough, I can kind of, say that I want to commercially exploit it. I'll give you a license to use it. Okay, you have to take the license to use it. Okay, or I can I'm very selfish. I don't want anybody to use my work. I just want to keep it to myself. I want to kind of not share my things with anybody, not share my work, so I am being protected. However, again, if you are protected, just like patents, there is something the Copyright Act also allows a fair use of things which are copyrighted for educational purpose, okay, and for betterment of kind of the society as such. Okay, so that is about copyright and open education resources. So what we have to understand is, as far as open education resources are concerned, the moment they are open, they are available on public domain, there are no copyright issues. Okay, and if there are no copyright issues, anybody can use it, anybody can reuse it, anybody can remix things, anybody can make changes, anybody can redistribute. If there is a license associated, then we have to kind of strictly adhere to the terms and conditions of the license. And if no license is given, then probably we would have to apply for fair use of the um copyrighted work. Okay, so this is basically with respect to copyright and education resources. Yes, now I come almost to the end of the end of my webinar, end of the webinar. Now, I definitely want to make a strong case for open educational resources. Now, why? Why do we need open educational resources? Let's say one particular day I did not have the time to prepare for my lectures. So what did I do? I kind of went to the website and I kind of found some material and I got it free. Okay. Now, what do? I use it for my class or for my kind of target audience. But do I not also have a moral obligation to kind of develop on the content and give it to others, to distribute to others? The answer is yes. So therefore I would make a very strong case, a strong advocacy for open educational resources. Now also what would bring in now um, open educational resources would definitely enhance the quality of education, the quality of work, the quality of content that we are delivering to our students. Okay. Now, similarly, for educational institutions, okay, education institutions also stand to benefit by use of open educational resources. I'll tell you why. Now, today, you know that kind of the fees. You want to attract students, you want to increase the admissions, you want all your courses to go full. Now, you would definitely kind of want to charge fees because that is your lifeline, that is your business model, that is how you sustain. Now what is that you can make less burdensome for the parents, less burdensome for the stakeholders, is giving textbooks or giving the course material free of cost. And giving course material free of cost can be a very good marketing advertising method. It can also be kind of trying to lower the cost of students and kind of actually furthering the cause of education and literacy in this country. Now lastly, as far as the government is concerned, I feel that we have right of education as a fundamental right in our constitution. Now right of education as a fundamental right, just being there does not suffice. We need to have the means to achieve this fundamental right, and the way one of the means of achieving this fundamental right to education is have right to have open educational resources, the resources which can be used free of cost openly by others, and kind of which can kind of benefit a lot of people, thereby making the dream of right to education a absolute workable proposition for India and for Indians. Okay. So with that, I come to the end of the webinar. I would like to take questions and answers at this point of time. Question answers.
Hello.
Questions?
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, ma'am.
Sir, I compliment you for a very excellent session that we have had on the topic. We have got number of comments from the participants that they have found the session extremely helpful. Before we move on to the question and answer session,
Yeah.
I believe that we had a little technical issue right in the beginning when I was giving the introduction speech,
Okay.
when I was giving your introduction. So I'm really very sorry about that. And just briefly, I would just introduce yourself to the audience once again.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Sunil George has a varied experience of almost 24 years in the field of law. He was in the corporate sector for almost 14 years, after which he has basically responded to the call of passion that he had for teaching, and he has joined the academic field. He has a doctorate degree in the field of law, and he has basically successfully cleared several competitive examinations at the national and the state level. Currently, he is associated with the Kirit P. Mehta School of Law, which is affiliated in turn to the NMIMS deemed to be university. He is also a visiting faculty at the NMIMS Institute of Business Management. His areas of specialization basically include criminal law, contract law, and human rights. Sir has participated in a number of paper presentations at national and international conferences, and he has several publications to his credit. Dr. Sunil George has been the recipient of the Best Faculty Award in the year 2018-19. Sir, I thank you on behalf of the IQAC and the Academic Improvement Committee for having accepted our invitation and for being here with us today. I once again compliment you for the excellent session, and I now hand over the mic to my colleague, Dr. Sanchita Datta, who will be handling the question-answer session.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. Good afternoon, Dr. George. From here, I will be taking you along with the questions. Though we've got many questions, I have shortlisted a few because of the paucity of time. So I'll be just taking some questions. First question is, what about the accuracy of these open educational resources?
Exactly. Yeah, very wonderful question for whoever has asked that. That's the biggest challenge because, you know, like when I made the presentation, I said that these open educational resources, you have a lot of content. Okay. Now, just like a WhatsApp forward which you get saying that something has happened somewhere in the country, I mean, you have to do your due diligence. You have to really find out whether this is authentic, the information is authentic, the originator is authentic. So that, as a subject expert, you should be able to kind of, you know, able to understand or make difference between authentic and unauthentic data. You can't just kind of, you know, take something which is posted and give it to kind of, you know, your students, which could be kind of, you know, counterproductive. So you will have to do that screening. You will have to kind of, you know, also sometimes it would be in a language which is much more difficult, which is not very easy for the students to understand at the level of a student. So therefore you will have to dilute the language. You will have to kind of, you know, tell them, you will have to put it in a language which is easily understandable, which can be, you know, the information can be disseminated by a student. So that you will have to do. There, it is definitely a challenge.
Going to the next question, we had a question which says, what about the ethical issues of these open educational resources? Because ideally, it is seen that we cannot copy all these open educational resources.
Correct. See, normally what happens is the moment a person has put it as an open educational resource, okay, and he has kind of, you know, see, when we saw the Creative Commons, okay, we saw the various kind of licenses which kind of, you know, is allowed, okay. In some, the author wants to kind of, you know, the user to commercially exploit it. In some, he just wants to kind of, you know, use it. He wants the end user to just use it, not commercially exploit. So subject to the terms and conditions of the license, subject to kind of, you know, it being available without a kind of, you know, any restrictions, you can use it. So you will have to kind of, you know, again look at what are the terms and conditions of the content which is available, and subject to those terms and conditions, you can use it for your particular purpose.
Okay. Coming to the next question is, what precautions should the teachers take to keep these rights of their efforts to safeguard the content that they have developed?
What effort, sorry, can you come again?
What precautions are to be taken by the teachers to keep their rights reserved for the efforts taken to develop the contents?
What efforts? See, basically, just like when you kind of, you know, write a textbook and you have copyrighted a textbook, and you definitely don't want either the publisher or anybody else to kind of, you know, make copies of it without your prior consent or permission. Similarly, you can also kind of, um, get your stuff copyrighted. But yes, you can also allow licenses for people to use it. Okay, and also kind of, see over a period of time. That's what kind of, when I dealt with reward and recognition. Okay, so if it is to be given free of cost, yes, I understand that it is a difficult proposition, because you're spending a lot of time. There's no reward or recognition associated with your hard work, and therefore you feel at the end of the day, you feel that your efforts have not been kind of, yielded you any fruits in the economic sense. So therefore, what you can do is kind of, either the government and the institution devises a scheme for incentivizing professors and faculty members, or they have to kind of, look for protecting their copyright issues even with these resources.
So another question is, we just saw, and you also mentioned that there are many of our students who are living either in the remote areas
Yeah.
or are very economically poor, who cannot access to these open education resources.
Yeah.
How can we deal with these issues?
See what can it I totally agree that it is a challenge, because when we kind of, normally when we kind of, think of India, we only think about the urban India. We
Yes.
forget the rural India, which is a reality. And we also know the kind of, circumstance. But what it can be done is, probably people can pool it. Okay, educational institutions can have kind of, satellite lectures. Okay, can have a mechanism where a particular resource can be shared. Okay, and the copies of it disseminated to kind of, students from, let's say, one laptop or one computer, that or the limited resources that the school or the college in a rural area would have. It is difficult, and it will take some time. We are in the right direction in terms of digitalization, and sooner or later the country would achieve a fully digital environment. We are slowly kind of, going towards that kind of, environment. But then, uh, in the meantime, in the interim period, obviously kind of, maybe pooling of resources, maybe kind of, can be done, so that these open education resources are affordable to the not so fortunate ones.
Okay. Uh, to the next question, sir.
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be some common norms to ensure the authenticity of these open education resources?
Good question.
Also,
Yeah.
some mandatory courses for teachers to improve literacy
Hmm.
about the laws on copyrights and repercussions of breaching these laws.
Okay. I think this is a very wonderful question. I like this question. Now, how you can, like, for example, when we write a research paper, there is a review, there's a peer review. Okay, or for example, in fact, even textbooks are reviewed by other colleagues or contemporaries, kind of, the same thing can be done with open research resources or open research material. What can be done is, we can have a mandatory thing that before it reaches the public domain, before it goes the public domain, it has to go through a stage of scrutiny, wherein to probably filter it for authenticity, filter it for kind of, genuineness, filter it for quality, and filter it for kind of, the relevance to a particular subject. That can be done. But that's a very relevant question.
What about some mandatory courses to improve the literacy laws of teachers for incorporating the copyrights, or what repercussion might happen if we breach these
I
laws?
think that should be, you don't need to have course. Probably you can have probably kind of, colleges and education institutions, because kind of, as research kind of, as many of the faculty members who are in the process of finishing their PhD, or or thesis or research papers or articles, they need to know these copyright kind of, issues. So I don't think there's a need for a full-time course, because what they need to know is a working knowledge of the issues involved. So probably a guest lecture or a seminar, or education institutions can kind of, encourage faculty members to understand the copyright issues with research articles, research papers, thesis, everything. So maybe a one-day seminar or a guest lecture can kind of serve the purpose.
Another question, sir. If I create an educational slideshow
Yeah.
using the Internet Creative Commons
Yeah.
and upload it on the YouTube,
Hmm.
how can the images be attributed? And how to add OER license to the YouTube video?
See, I would not like to because of paucity of time, I don't want to go to the procedural aspects of it. But then answering your question of how do I do it, like how at the end of the book, how do you have a bibliography, or how you recognize or you give recognition to people who have been contributed, or the source of your information. You disclose the source of your information, the source of your research, the articles that you've referred. You can do the same thing at the start of the video. You can acknowledge the author or the creator of the open education resource.
Another question, sir. If I'm supposed to make study notes for the students to be distributed to them,
Yeah.
a collation of many topics and
Yeah.
most of the reference materials that is available, how
Yeah.
do I try to take care of these copyrights issues?
See, again, the same thing. I mean, you will have to understand under what license the the resource is available. If it is it available with conditions? Is it something where the user has permitted what do you call it to be used without any restrictions, or he has put selective restrictions in terms of commercial use, non-commercial use, in terms of acknowledging him as the author or the contributor? It depends. So you'll have to on a case-to-case basis, you will have to understand what are the terms and conditions of the license under which the open education resource has been provided. If there are no conditions, then you can use it as you like it, and you don't have to be dependent upon anything.
Someone just posted a question which says, does open education resources provide certificates and degrees?
There are so many in fact there are so many online courses available. Okay, I mean, I would like to take this opportunity because we are all faculty members. So basically there are so many online courses which are available. Now, one of the benefit of I mean, today, I mean, like in this peculiar situation, you are you're forced to be indoors. So why not utilize this utilize this lockdown to unlock your potential, unlock your skills, okay, and unlock your knowledge. So basically, what you can probably do is you can attend. There's so many online courses available. They also provide e-certificates, electronic certificates for attending these courses, which also include some faculty development programs, which is conducted by the Ministry of Human Resource Development. So then I think this can be utilized. There are a lot of them, and I think as faculty members we should make best use of this opportunity or this forced lockdown, so that we are able to be uh, stand more confidently in front of our stakeholders, which are students.
Are these Creative Commons free?
Sorry?
Are these Creative Commons free?
They are, but then they have certain licenses, because like in the different types of Creative Commons that I dealt with, see, there are certain conditions attached. So it comes mostly free, as long as it's an open education resource. But it is definitely comes with certain terms and conditions. You will have to adhere to those terms and conditions.
Sir,
Yeah.
if one come across a video
Yeah.
in MOOC which he or she finds relevant to the students,
Yeah.
can it be used in the regular lectures or in a Google Classroom lecture?
He can use it, provided he gives he acknowledges the source. Okay, like for example, when I write a research paper, okay, now I am not going basically, research itself means that I'm researching something which is already existing. I am not saying that this is my creation, I'm the creator. I'm not saying that. So therefore, as long as I give proper acknowledgement to the originator, to the owner, to the creator, then I think I have done my job, my moral as well as my legal obligation. I think there's a question, I don't know whether I should take this question. There are a lot of consequences of misusing intellectual property rights, which can have civil as well as criminal consequences. Okay, maybe, sometime, you know, we can have a lecture on that also.
Okay. Uh, Sir, one more question which says, mm, in case I'm using a copyrighted book to make notes and distribute them to students,
Yeah.
how do I know the book is copyrighted one? And if at all I use it, what are the consequences that I might face?
See, normally when a person has kind of, published a book. So when I publish a book, obviously kind of, I am saying that it is available in the public domain. Okay. Now, obviously, this person, the original person, the author of the book has got his reward or reward in terms of, the royalty that he's got from the publisher for publishing the books or the copies of the books. Now, can you photocopy the books and not buy the books? The answer is no. But can you use it as a study material? Okay, can you kind of use it for making PPTs? The answer is yes, because ultimately kind of you have purchased a book, so you have already paid for his work. So there's no kind of moral or legal kind of cheating that you're doing on that person. Yeah.
Okay. One last question.
Yeah.
Are these YouTube videos type of OERs?
Not all of them, most of them.
Continuing the same question,
Yeah.
where are this misuse of data in the OER headed to?
What? I'm sorry.
What are the misuse of the data in OER heading to?
Use and misuse depends upon the person. Okay. So basically, if somebody has to misuse it, now, when you say misuse, I really do not know what the person wants to, what wants to define the misuse as. Is misuse meaning kind of, what do you call, in terms of commercially exploiting it without or something else? I'm not sure. But then assuming that it is a commercial exploitation, then yes, there could be issues. But that is true with everything. I mean, like, you can use a knife to kill somebody, you can use a knife to cut vegetables. So it depends upon what you use it for.
So one question from our Vice Principal, Madam. She wants to ask, what are these copyrights related to softwares and hardwares?
I'm sorry?
What are these copyrights issues related to softwares and hardwares?
Related to software and hardware. Okay. See, mostly, good afternoon, ma'am. First of all, basically, the copyright issues would mostly come with respect to kind of, software, not with respect to hardware, because hardware, you have already purchased the hardware. Okay. So you're not going to duplicate the hardware. What you're going to duplicate is the software. I mean, you're duplicating the license, or you kind of, you got it to use and you're kind of duplicating it. So the issues would be, like for example, if you got a license, it again comes with certain terms and conditions. How many people can access it? Okay. Would it be kind of shared across kind of locations across the globe, or it's going to be just limited to your education institution? So this definitely would be the subject matter of the terms and conditions of the agreement which is signed between the software developer or the software provider and the education institution.
So there are many questions, but I think we'll stop here with the questions. Many participants would like to have a copy of your presentation as well as your contact details.
Okay. Once again, I mean, I don't know whether I can share the screen. Is my screen visible?
No, sir, not yet.
Yes, yes, sir. You can share it again.
Yeah. This is. Is my screen visible now?
No, sir. You just press the share option, share screen option.
Okay. Yeah, 1 second.
It's not finding.
I don't know whether 1 second, just hold on. Yeah. I don't know why I'm not able to share. Yeah. What do I do?
They want your PPT and your contact details.
Yeah, I've already forwarded it to Chitaleka ma'am. So she, ma'am, that's perfectly okay. I mean, you can kind of share it with the participants. I mean, at your discretion. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So we'll share the same either through the Telegram app or through the messages, email. We'll send the PPT as well as Dr. George's contact details. We are constantly getting chats which says, what about the feedback link? They're so eager to give us a good feedback. We've been getting a lot of feedback, sir, when you were speaking.
Okay.
The feedback link is posted in the chat box.
Okay.
You can directly click on the link and give a feedback for the webinar. The feedback link will be open only for the next 1 hour after the webinar is open. And the certificates will be distributed it will reach you within 7 days. Certificates will be provided only when you fill the feedback form as well as if you have registered. Now, coming to the conclusion of the webinar, I would like to propose a vote of thanks. It gives me great pleasure to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Sunil George, who consented to speak on a topic which has always been bothering all of us about copyrights and licensing when we use such a lot of internet while we make PowerPoints or we show a video to the class. I'm sure a few of the queries must have been solved after Sir has spoken to us. Sir, your speech has given us a new insight towards the use of open educational resources. Thank you so much. I would fail in my duty if I do not acknowledge the help provided by Dr. Santosh Kulagarbali from Central University of Haryana, who has been the person to help us to arrange such a resourceful speaker like Dr. George. Uh, I really want to extend a very big thank you to the online hosting partner, that is JMF's FSS Vande Mataram College, Degree College from Dombivli. Special thank you to the principal, Dr. Kolhe, and Mr. Someshwar, who has been helping out for organizing this first webinar of us. Thank you so much. I extend my thanks to our principal, sir, the members of I2AC, and the members of the Academic Improvement Committee for planning, organizing, and finally executing this first webinar of its kind from our college. A special thanks to our own faculty of the Computer Science Department, Mr. Mudassar, for all the technical help that is being provided. A big appreciation and thank you to all the participants who were so enthusiastic to participate, have so many questions being asked, and were totally engrossed in this entire speech that was conducted. Thank you so much. Lastly, on behalf of my colleagues, I express my deep gratitude to our founder, sir, Principal Laktawala, for giving us a strong platform on which we stand tall. And from this platform, we are hosting this first webinar. Thank you, sir. Our special thanks to our management, who is always and ever ready. They have an ever ready attitude to help us and support us for all our ventures. Thank you so much. I now request Dr. Chitra to play a small song which is created by our students on YouTube to end the webinar. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. The link for the feedback form has been posted in the chat box. You can directly click on the link and the feedback form will be open. As my colleague Dr. Sanchita said, that we'll be ending with a song of hope, a song that has become very popular in these days. And our students from the BMS faculty, BMS and BAF faculty have basically made this video recording at home when they are at home during the lockdown period. So just give me a moment and I'll just play that song. Mudassar, is my share screening enabled? Mudassar?
Yes, ma'am, it is enabled. Just share.
Yeah, I'm sharing it right now.
फिर से शहरों में रौनक आएगी, फिर से गाँव में लौटेगी हंसी, फिर से साथ सारे यार होंगे, ना होगी पाबंदी, ना रोके कोई, फिर से सड़कों पे सब नाचेंगे, पटरी पे पहिए भागेंगे, गूंजेंगे खेलों के मैदान, बांटेंगे हम खुशियाँ, लंबी हम मिलकर बांटेंगे, फिर से होगी सपनों की उड़ान, जो साथ दे दे सारा इंडिया, मुस्कुराएगा इंडिया, जीत जाएगा इंडिया, जो साथ दे सारा इंडिया, मुस्कुराएगा 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 इंडिया, जीत जाएगा इंडिया, मुस्कुराएगा इंडिया।
It's really nice, ma'am. The students have really taken a lot of efforts. And thank you very much. I mean, I really loved this webinar.
Thank you, sir, so much. For the benefit of the participants, we are just getting some messages that the feedback link is not active. We'll be posting the same feedback link in the Telegram group, so please don't worry about it. We'll be putting the link in the Telegram group. On behalf of all of us over here, we are calling it a day right now as far as the webinar is concerned. On behalf of all of us here at Royal College, I wish our participants good luck and good times ahead. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, ma'am.